I used to think love was supposed to hurt a little, that tension meant passion, that chaos meant connection. That's how she made me believe it. At least, the first time I met her, she had that look, the kind of woman who could make a room quiet without saying a word. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnetic, confident, perfectly composed. Everyone around her seemed smaller somehow, like they existed only to fill the space between her sentences. She smiled at me that night, not kindly, but like she'd already decided who I'd be to her. And I fell for it instantly. I thought I'd met someone strong, independent, real. I didn't realize then that she was just waiting for me to hand her the keys to my peace of mind. In the beginning, she made everything feel effortless. She laughed at my jokes, remembered every little thing I said, made me feel like I was the only one who saw the real her. But there were cracks, even then. Subtle things. How she always needed to know where I was, who I talked to, what I was thinking. She'd ask small, innocent questions, but there was always something behind them, something sharp. If I didn't answer fast enough, she'd go quiet. Not angry, not upset, just cold. The kind of silence that eats through you until you start apologizing without even knowing what for. I told myself she just cared too much. I told myself I was lucky that someone like her even wanted me. That's how she trained me, one quiet disappointment at a time. It wasn't until months later that I realized how much of myself I'd already lost. My friends started noticing first. They said I'd changed, that I seemed tense, distracted. But she always had a reason. They're jealous. They don't understand us. You deserve better company. And I believed her, because she said it with that same calm confidence. She said everything. She wasn't loud about her control. She never yelled. She didn't need to. She could twist reality just by choosing which parts of the story to tell. If I ever stood up for myself, she'd tilt her head, almost amused, and say, "You're overreacting again." And just like that, I'd start doubting my own memory. It's terrifying how easy it is to lose yourself to someone who seems certain about everything. I started thinking maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was overthinking. And she made sure I stayed in that uncertainty, like a leash that looked invisible but felt real every time I tried to move. But then came the night everything started to change. The night I found something on her phone that she never meant for me to see. A message, one line, from a name I didn't recognize. It said, "He's starting to notice. Be careful." My chest tightened. I didn't understand. I thought maybe it was about her work, maybe something harmless. But as I scrolled, the truth started unraveling. And with every word, the image I had of her shattered a little more. Because what I found wasn't just proof that she'd been lying. It was proof that she'd been planning. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of her phone screen, reading the messages over and over again until my eyes started to blur. There were dozens of them, some short, some long, some that felt like coded conversations between two people who thought they were too clever to get caught. Most of them were vague, careful, like they'd been written by someone who understood that words could become weapons later. But there was enough. Enough to know she'd been meeting someone behind my back. Enough to know she'd been telling someone private details about my life, about our life, things I'd never told anyone else. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, some missing context that would make everything make sense. I told myself I'd ask her calmly, that I'd give her the chance to explain before I jumped to conclusions. But my hands were shaking. My throat felt dry. The person I loved, the one who'd once told me I made her feel safe, had been talking about me like I was an experiment. By morning, I convinced myself not to confront her. I'd seen what she did when she felt accused. The way she could turn from soft to cruel in seconds, how she could twist my emotions into proof of my instability. So I waited, pretended everything was fine, made breakfast, smiled, watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had happened. She noticed, of course. She always noticed. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice gentle, but her eyes sharp. "Nothing," I said. She smiled, that smile that looked like comfort but felt like warning. "You're lying." I stayed silent. That silence was my mistake. She hated silence more than anything. It meant she wasn't in control of the story yet. So she kept pushing one question after another until my chest was so tight I thought I'd explode. And when I finally said it, when I finally told her I'd seen the messages, she didn't flinch, not even a flicker of surprise. She just looked at me completely calm and said, "So you went to my phone?" That's when I knew I'd already lost. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain. She didn't even seem angry. She just redirected. The tone in her voice changed. No more softness. No more warmth. Just slow, deliberate disappointment. "Do you realize what you've done? How much you just shown me I can't trust you." It felt like a punch to the chest. I tried to speak, but she kept going, talking over me, layering words like knives. "You violated my privacy. You're paranoid. This is exactly what I was afraid of, that you'd twist everything, that you'd make me feel like I'm walking on eggshells." I remember standing there, holding her phone, trying to explain that I wasn't paranoid, that the messages were right there, that I wasn't imagining things. But every sentence I said, she spun into something darker. "So now you're accusing me? So now I can't even talk to my coworkers? So now you think you can control who I text?" And with every question, I felt myself shrinking. That's what she was best at. Not shouting, not insulting, shrinking you. At one point, she sighed, like she was the one who'd been hurt, like she was exhausted from carrying the weight of my insecurities. She put her hand on my arm and whispered, "You need to stop doing this. You're sabotaging us. I love you, but I can't keep being the target of your paranoia." Her words wrapped around me like chains. I started doubting what I saw, even though I'd literally read it with my own eyes. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe those messages weren't what I thought. She was so calm, so convincing, that the part of me that still loved her clung to the illusion. She even cried, soft, quiet tears that seemed too real to fake. "I can't believe you'd think that of me," she whispered, "after everything I've done for you." That line hit me harder than any lie. Everything I've done for you. Because in her mind, love wasn't something we shared. It was something I owed her for tolerating me. I apologized. I don't even know how it happened, but I did. I said sorry for invading her privacy, for doubting her, for not trusting her enough. And she forgave me. Of course she did. She pulled me close, kissed me softly, whispered, "I just want us to be okay." It should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like surrender. That night, she left her phone out again, screen up this time, like a peace offering. I told myself I wouldn't look. I didn't want to fall back into that cycle of suspicion and guilt. But as I walked past it, I saw one new notification light up, a message from the same name. And it said, "He apologized. I told you he would." I stood there, frozen, while she laughed at something on TV, the sound of victory disguised as joy. That's when I realized she wasn't just lying to me. She was training me. After that night, something inside me broke in a way I didn't even notice at first. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no plates thrown, no fights. Just a quiet shift, like a small crack in glass that slowly spreads until the whole thing shatters. She started speaking softer, moving slower, smiling more. You'd think things were getting better, that we were healing. But that's what made it worse. She didn't heal, she adapted. She found new ways to keep me off balance. I stopped talking to my friends. Not because she told me to, she never had to. She just planted seeds. "It's strange how they only call when they need something," she'd say. Or, "They don't really like me, do they?" And I'd start noticing little things, imagining slights that weren't there. Every time I tried to defend them, she'd sigh softly and say, "You always take their side." So eventually I stopped bringing them up, then stopped replying to them, then stopped hearing from them at all. At work, I wasn't the same. I kept checking my phone, second-guessing everything. She had a way of knowing when to message me, right before meetings, during deadlines, little distractions that made me feel like I was always failing someone. And when I came home, she'd notice my frustration, tilt her head and say, "You're so tense lately. Is it me?" And of course, I'd say no. Of course, I'd apologize. Again, It wasn't that she shouted or insulted or humiliated me. No, she was too clever for that. She'd just withdraw her warmth. The laughter, the affection, the little touches gone. I'd walk into the room and feel the temperature drop. She wouldn't say she was angry. She'd just be angry, like a ghost hovering around me. That's how she punished me. Not by fighting, but by vanishing. And every time she did, I'd chase her. I'd do whatever it took to get her to look at me again, to smile again, to tell me I wasn't crazy. I became addicted to her approval. It was the only way to feel like myself anymore. She used to tell me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. Now, she said it differently. You used to be the best thing that ever happened to me. That word, used to, cut deeper than anything else, because it implied I'd ruined it, that I'd broken something perfect. I started believing it. Then came the whispers about my job. A co-worker mentioned she'd stopped by one afternoon to bring me lunch. I hadn't told her where I worked, but somehow she found out. Later, another colleague told me she'd sent an email to my boss out of concern, saying I was under stress and not handling pressure well. She made it sound like she cared, but I knew what she was doing. She was building her story early, the story where I was unstable, paranoid, hard to deal with. The same story she'd use later, when everything fell apart. At home, she'd ask subtle questions. Did anyone say anything strange at work? Or, you've been quiet lately. Is it because of me or because of them? She made me explain myself until I didn't know what the truth was anymore. And when I got frustrated, she'd smile and say, "See, this is what I mean. You're always on edge. You need help, baby. You're not okay." There was no shouting, no visible bruises, no proof. Just little things. Late-night conversations where she'd tell me she was scared of who I was becoming. Mornings when she'd say she dreamed I was cheating. Evenings when she'd go quiet if I didn't text her fast enough. Each time, I'd try harder, be softer, more careful, more perfect. But perfection doesn't exist, not when the rules change every day. One week, she wanted space. The next, she accused me of being distant. One moment, she told me I was the only one who understood her. The next, she'd say I was impossible to love. I started keeping track of her moods like weather patterns, calm, cloudy, cold, then sudden storms. I learned to read the air, to sense the shift before it hit. And through it all, she stayed calm. That was the most terrifying part. The calmness, because it made me question my own reality. If she was so composed, maybe I really was a problem. Maybe I really was losing control. One night, after another quiet argument that ended with her turning her back to me in bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized something that made my chest go cold. I hadn't made a decision on my own in months. Not about what to eat, not about who to see, not about what to believe. Every thought went through her first. Every feeling depended on her approval. She didn't just control my life. She became it. And the cruelest part? She made me believe it was love. It started with a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I came home early one evening. The office had closed down for maintenance, and I thought maybe, for once, we could have a quiet night together. When I opened the door, she was in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice soft and sweet. The same tone she used with me when she wanted to get her way. At first, I thought she was talking to a friend, but then I heard my name. "He doesn't even realize how much he needs me," she said, a small laugh following her words. "He's so lost without me. It's adorable, really." A pause. No, I'm not worried. He'd never leave. He thinks he can't." I froze. Every word landed like a knife, slow and precise. My body moved before my brain did. I stepped back quietly, pretending I'd just come home, rattled my keys loud enough for her to hear. When I entered the kitchen, she smiled, acting surprised, like the call had been nothing. "Oh, hey, baby, you're early." I asked who she was talking to. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly, and said, "Just my sister." But her sister's number wasn't saved under that name. And I knew it. That night, I waited until she fell asleep, the soft rhythm of her breathing steady beside me. I picked up her phone, opened the messages, and there it was again, the same number from before, the same name I didn't recognize. Only this time, the messages weren't vague. They were detailed, calculated. She'd been talking about me, about what I said, how I reacted, how easy it was to steer me. There were lines like, "He apologized again. It's working," and worse. I told him his co-workers were talking about him. He believed it. I scrolled through weeks of messages, my stomach twisting. This wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. She'd been narrating our entire relationship to someone, documenting every manipulation, every lie, like she was proud of it, like it was a game. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at her as she slept peacefully beside me, her hand resting on my chest like she owned me, like even in her dreams, she had to remind me I was hers. I should have left right then. I should have walked out the door, packed a bag, disappeared. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Because by that point, I wasn't sure where I ended and she began. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. I smiled, made her coffee, even kissed her forehead before work. I was done confronting her. She thrived on confrontation. She twisted every argument into proof that I was the problem. No, this time I needed to think, to plan. So I started doing what she always did. I began watching her. I noticed a pattern immediately. She always needed someone to validate her, someone new to charm, someone to keep her ego fed. If I wasn't enough, she'd find it somewhere else, a friend, a co-worker, a stranger online. But she always came back to me to balance it out, to make herself feel like the victim again. Every cycle started the same: distance, tension, guilt, control, repeat. And every time, I fell right back into it. But now I was done falling. I started saving everything: the messages, the voice notes, even the way she spoke to me. I wrote it all down: dates, words, reactions. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof for myself that I wasn't crazy. Proof that this nightmare had rules, that it was real. She noticed a shift within days. She started asking questions: where I was going, why I was so quiet, who I was texting. The irony was almost poetic. She accused me of being secretive, paranoid, distant. She said she felt unsafe around me. Unsafe, that word again. Her favorite weapon. Then came the sabotage. She started messaging my co-workers again, pretending to be concerned. One of them showed me the text. "He's been acting strange. Please keep an eye on him. He doesn't tell me much anymore, and I'm worried." She made it look like she was protecting me, while quietly making sure everyone saw me as unstable. That's when I realized she wasn't just manipulating me. She was rewriting my entire life, sentence by sentence. But something shifted inside me that week. For the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid of her. I felt clarity. The fear had burned out, replaced by something colder, sharper: purpose. I knew she'd never stop until she destroyed every piece of me that didn't belong to her. So I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I'd do what she never expected me to do. I'd vanish. No warning. No note. No closure. Because people like her don't deserve endings. They deserve silence. Leaving her wasn't something I could just do overnight. She had her hands in every part of my life. My finances, my friends, even my sense of identity. She'd spent months convincing me that without her, I'd fall apart. And the worst part? I'd started to believe it. That's what people like her do. They don't just trap you in a relationship. They trap you inside yourself. So I didn't pack a bag and walk out. I started planning quietly, like a man escaping a war zone one step at a time. I created a new email, a new bank account. I started transferring small amounts of money every few days. Nothing noticeable, nothing that would raise suspicion. I told her work was paying me less. She pitied me, even offered to help me budget better. The irony almost made me laugh. At night, while she slept, I'd sit on the edge of bed, my phone dimmed to its lowest brightness, scrolling through rental listings in other cities. I didn't even know where I wanted to go. Just somewhere she couldn't find me. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere where I could finally wake up without wondering what version of her I'd face that morning. But she could feel it, the shift in energy. She always could. It's like she had a radar for disobedience. One evening, as I was washing dishes, she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. Her voice was low, sweet. "You've been distant lately," she said. "Are you hiding something?" My heart froze. I kept my tone calm. "Just tired." She didn't buy it. I could hear the smile fade in her voice. "You're not tired. You're slipping away." That night, she stayed awake longer than usual, watching me, not saying a word, just watching. Every time I turned over, her eyes were open, reflecting the dim light from a window. I'd seen that look before, not sadness, not love, just control disguised as concern. Over the next few days, she became unpredictable. One moment she was affectionate, cooking for me, leaving sweet notes on the mirror, kissing my forehead like everything was fine. The next, she was ice cold, accusing me of things I hadn't done, saying she could feel that I was lying to her. Her paranoia was growing, but it wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. She could sense that her grip was weakening, and that terrified her more than anything. She started showing up at my work again. I'd catch her reflection in the glass doors, pretending to be on her phone, pretending to wait for someone. When I confront her, she'd laugh and say, "You're imagining things. I was just nearby." Then she'd lean in close and whisper, "You've been acting strange. I'm starting to worry about you." That was her favorite trick. Make me doubt my own sanity while she dismantled it piece by piece. I knew if I left suddenly, she'd find me. She'd call everyone I knew, twist every story, make me look like the monster again. I had to disappear cleanly. I started telling people at work that I might move soon, just in case she came asking questions later. I wanted the story to sound ordinary, forgettable. Then I started removing my things from the apartment, one item at a time. A few clothes hidden in the trunk of my car, my old laptop in a box at the office, a photo of my parents that used to sit on the dresser. Gone. She noticed little changes. Of course. "Did you move something?" she'd ask, glancing around. "No," I'd say. She'd pause, eyes narrowing slightly, then smile again. "You're sure?" Always testing, always searching for weakness. The final straw came one night when I got home late. She was sitting in the dark, lights off, just waiting. I flipped the switch, and she didn't even blink at the brightness. "Where were you?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry. It was calm, too calm. That made it worse. "I told you I had a late shift." She nodded slowly, then said, "I called your boss." My stomach dropped. "You what?" She tilted her head. "I was worried. I want to make sure you were safe." Her voice was sugar, but her eyes were stone. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to keep me. She was trying to erase the idea that I could exist without her. After that night, I stopped hesitating. I finished the plan. I signed a lease under a different name, a small, empty apartment 2 towns away. I packed the last few essentials, clothes, documents, cash, and hid them in my car. Then I waited for the right moment. The last morning I spent with her, she made pancakes, humming softly like nothing was wrong. She looked at me across the table, smiling, her hand reaching for mine. "Promise me you'll never leave," she said. I forced a smile back. "I promise." She laughed, satisfied, and for a second, I saw what she wanted, control disguised as love. But that night, when she fell asleep beside me, I quietly stood up, packed my last bag, and walked out the door. No note, no explanation, no goodbye. For the first time in over a year, the air felt real again. Cold, but real. But freedom doesn't come clean. Because as I drove away, her words echoed in my head. "You'll never be free from me." And somehow, I knew she wasn't wrong. Freedom didn't feel like freedom at first. It felt like silence. The kind of silence that's too heavy to breathe in. The first few nights in the new apartment were unbearable. No sounds, no footsteps, no soft hum of her voice in the other room. Just me, alone with the kind of quiet that makes you start hearing your own thoughts too loudly. At first, I kept checking the door. I don't even know why. I'd double lock it, slide the chain across, sit down, and within 10 minutes I'd get up again to check if it was still locked. I knew she wasn't there, but that didn't matter. Her presence didn't need walls. It lived in my head. I'd hear her in every creak, see a reflection in every dark window, smell her perfume even when I hadn't been near her in weeks. Then came the messages. At first, they were harmless, or at least they seemed that way. Anonymous numbers. I hope you're okay. I still think about you. You can't just disappear on someone who loves you. I knew it was her. The rhythm, the punctuation, even the way she used ellipses. 3 dots, always 3. She thought she was clever, but she'd forgotten one thing. When someone's controlled you long enough, you start to recognize their fingerprints on every word. I ignored them at first, but ignoring her was like throwing gasoline on a fire. The messages grew darker. Do your new friends know what you did? You can run, but I'll always find you. I made you who you are. Without me, you're nothing. I changed my number. She found a new one within days. I deleted social media. She created fake accounts. I could tell because the tone was always the same. Different names, same venom. I'd block one, and another would appear. She was everywhere and nowhere at the same time, haunting me from behind screens and shadows. One morning, I walked outside to find an envelope under my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, me, walking to work, taken from a distance. On the back, written in her handwriting, I told you you can't hide. I felt sick. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the photo. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. That's when I realized she didn't need to hurt me physically. She wanted me scared, paranoid, broken. Fear was her language. I started checking the blinds, unplugging my router at night, looking over my shoulder everywhere I went. My co-workers noticed the tension, the dark circles, the silence. I didn't tell them the truth. What would I say? My ex is stalking me, but she's too smart to get caught? No one would believe me. She was too careful, too precise. Everything she did existed in the gray zone between normal and nightmare. Then she started reaching out to people I knew. My old boss messaged me one morning. She reached out, said you were struggling. Should we be concerned? My stomach dropped. The pattern was back. The same soft concern, the same innocent wording. She was rebuilding the story, just like before, only this time, she was doing it from a distance. And she didn't stop there. My mother got a letter too, handwritten, no return address, just folded neatly inside an envelope that smelled faintly of her perfume. My mom called me crying, asking why I hadn't told her I was having episodes. She believed it. Of course she did. The words were perfect, gentle, caring, believable. I could almost hear her voice reading them aloud as she wrote. He's not well. Please make sure he gets help before it's too late. That night, I snapped. I started tearing through the apartment, looking for cameras, trackers, anything. I pulled apart the smoke detector, checked under furniture, even took my phone apart with a screwdriver. There was nothing. She didn't need to spy. She just needed me to think she was. That's how she won. Not by being everywhere, but by making me believe she could be. For days, I didn't leave my apartment. I barely slept. Every sound outside felt like her steps. Every knock on the wall felt like a message. I started writing everything down again. Every strange text, every call, every encounter. It wasn't for proof anymore. It was for sanity, a way to convince myself that it was real. Then one day, the messages stopped, just like that. No more calls, no more letters, no more photos. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally gotten bored, moved on to someone else to control. But that's the thing about people like her. They don't move on. They evolve. 2 weeks later, I got a message from an unknown number. Only one sentence. You really thought you could win? And attached to it was a screenshot. My face, sitting in my apartment, taken from my webcam. I dropped the phone. My whole body went numb. I pulled the laptop cord out of the wall and threw it across the room. The screen cracked. The light flickered once, then died. But even in the dark, I felt her eyes on me. That night, I realized something I'd never let myself think before. She didn't just want me to come back. She wanted to own me, even if it meant destroying me. I knew what I had to do. Running wasn't enough anymore. Hiding wasn't enough. The only way to end this was to confront her one final time. But this time, I wouldn't be the broken man she left behind. This time, I'd be the one holding the truth. I spent the night before our meeting staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked older, not in years, but in weight. Sleepless nights, paranoia, fear. They leave marks deeper than age ever could. I'd planned this moment for weeks, but even then, part of me wondered if I was walking into a trap. That was her specialty, making you doubt what's real until you destroy yourself trying to prove it. But this time, I wasn't going in blind. I had everything I needed, the evidence, the recordings, and most importantly, control. She wanted to meet. That's what her last message said. Let's talk. No games. One last time. I agreed, not because I wanted closure. I knew there was no such thing with her, but because I wanted it to end. I'd picked a public place, a small cafe downtown with glass walls and too many people to witness anything she might try. When I got there, she was already waiting. Same table by the window, same soft smile, same perfume that used to feel like home and now felt like poison. For a moment, it almost disarmed me how normal she looked. No guilt, no tension, no trace of the woman who had torn through my life like a storm. "Hey," she said softly, as if the last few months hadn't happened. "You look tired." "I've had worse nights," I said. She smiled, stirring her coffee slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "You always were dramatic." I didn't respond. I just watched her, studied every expression, every tilt of her head. She was waiting for me to crack first, to show weakness, to give her something to manipulate. That was always her power. Silence terrified her, because silence meant she wasn't directing the scene anymore. After a few minutes, she sighed and leaned forward. "You made this harder than it had to be," she said. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to help you see yourself clearly." That sentence, "help you see yourself clearly," that was her whole game. She'd been helping me for over a year, breaking me down and calling it love. "I saw myself just fine," I said quietly, "until you started changing the reflection." Her eyes flickered. For a split second, the calm slipped, replaced by something darker, colder. "You're still blaming me?" she said, her tone low now. "After everything? You think you're innocent in all this?" "I don't think I'm innocent," I said. "I just know what you did." I slid my phone across the table. The screen lit up, message logs, recordings, photos, all neatly organized in folders. She glanced at it, then back at me, her expression unreadable. "What is this supposed to be?" "Proof," I said. "Every lie, every message, every little story you told about me. All of it." For the first time, she blinked too fast, too sharp. Then she laughed, shaking her head. "You really think anyone's going to believe your version? I've already told them what happened. You're unstable. You're obsessed. You've been harassing me for months." I smiled. "Yeah, you told them that. But you forgot something you told me too. And I recorded it." Her laughter stopped. She stared at me, lips parted, eyes narrowing as the realization sank in. I pressed play. Her own voice filled the cafe speakers, soft, controlled, unmistakable. "He'll believe whatever I tell him. That's the fun part. He's too scared to leave. I've made sure of it. If he tries to talk, no one will believe him." Her face drained of color. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. "It's over," I said. "Every message, every recording, every fake profile, all backed up, all sent to people you can't reach." Her mask cracked then. For the first time, I saw what she really was. Not powerful, not confident, not composed. Just small, empty. A person who only knew how to live by breaking others. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You think you've won?" "I don't need to win," I said. "I just need to stop losing to you." She leaned back, staring at me like she was seeing a ghost. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. You always come back. They all do. I stood up. Not this time. She didn't follow me. She didn't shout. She just sat there, frozen, her eyes distant, calculating. Maybe realized for the first time that she couldn't twist this ending to her favor. Outside, the air hit cold against my face. I walked for hours, not toward anything, just away. Away from the noise, away from her voice, away from the cage I'd built around myself trying to keep her happy. For the first time, I felt weightless. Not free, not yet, but lighter. Weeks passed after that meeting. No calls, no messages, no shadows in the corner of my eye. I heard from a mutual friend that she'd moved, or maybe disappeared. It didn't matter. I didn't care where she went, because for the first time in a long time, her story wasn't the one being told, and mine was finally mine again. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice, not real, just echoes, but it doesn't control me anymore. I don't answer. I don't flinch. I just let the silence grow until even the memory of her fades, because in the end, she wasn't my worst mistake. She was my greatest lesson.